Thanks very much, Scott. And I'm really honored to be here this afternoon for a number of reasons. One, U.S. Bank is a recent partner in addition to Plug and Play, and the work that Saeed and the rest of the folks at Plug and Play are doing is really impressive. And having an opportunity to sit in the retail startup pitches this morning, I was struck by a number of things, but the biggest of which was that the overlap in the areas of opportunity between the two verticals is so strong that there's a decent list of follow-up that, for instance, we have from the U.S. Bank team to look at where they intersect with the businesses that we're in. I want to talk a little bit about the bank, just so you have an idea of who we are. I know we have a presence here in California, and so the folks that are here probably recognize the brand. We're a large retail bank, fifth largest in the United States. About 3,100 plus branches in predominantly 25 states. So we're not national. Actually, no bank is really national in terms of all the states. But we have really strong distribution across those 25 states. What's interesting about us and a little bit unique is that we have our own payments business, and that payments business is international. So we're reaching across into, I think, a little more than 30 countries in total operation, and we're on the issuing and acquiring side and in the corporate payments side. And so for the folks that are working in FinTech, there will be some particularly relevant opportunities either in the U.S. or globally for different areas of opportunity for us. And then we have an institutional trust and custody business that's also global. Now, this is not a chart you would normally expect to see in a group like this. These are the returns for U.S. Bancorp in terms of our ROA, ROE, and efficiency. The only thing that matters on this is that the solid blue line, which is us, is number one in every one of the categories. So why do I show that to a group like this? Well, we're very disciplined in terms of the way that we run the bank, and we're very disciplined in terms of the way that we run our innovation practice, but we believe that we have been able to prove that we're able to experiment, test, and learn in an effective way within an organization structured like ours that performs at the top of our peer group over and over again, and we've been at it from the innovation group for the past 8 years. So let me talk just a little bit about our innovation group, which is Primary On Point, and Totter Moning and Chris Swanson from my organization are also here, and we'll be in the booth this afternoon too to talk to folks, because part of what we wanted to do is introduce us to you all into the community more broadly. We started 8 years ago with a focus on longer-term product development and innovation. And in an innovation lexicon, if you will, sort of the Horizon 3. So looking at things that are 3 to 5 years into the future, where emerging markets, technology, consumer behavior, or business needs begin to converge, and where there are opportunities for us to develop product that meet those needs. Now, back then we knew, and we know even more now, that we don't necessarily have to build all of these things ourselves. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of opportunity throughout the development of these products and their life cycles to partner with a number of different firms, especially like folks that are at events like this or invested in by entities like Plug and Play. So we're focused on the longer term time horizon. The businesses within the bank continue to be focused on their core business and do product development. And if you've worked in a large corporation, you'll know that it is very difficult to do long-range strategic thinking and planning and product development and placing a number of bets across a number of different new technologies, and at the same time run a really large business that is potentially heavily regulated and subject to a number of different market dynamics. And so what our group does is try to separate that out and allow us to focus on the longer term and partner with our business units within the bank to help them begin to develop new product roadmaps down the road. This is what my team looks like. So I have the pleasure of leading a team. We have 25 folks, so we are 24 folks in one empty box, so we're hiring. We have 25 folks on the team. We're focused in the spaces that I mentioned, and the way that we're organized, I think, is a little bit unique. So this isn't a traditional org chart on purpose, but we have folks who are centered on research and development. So Totter and Chris, for example, fall into that body of work. Within research and development, they're looking at emerging technologies and emerging spaces that are not yet ready for prime time, but have the potential to be applicable to the business that we're in. We have folks who are working specifically on emerging payments technologies, and so that's where you'll see things like the Apple Pay, Samsung Pays, Android Pays, tokenization, and all of those different sort of underlying payments technologies playing out within our organization. Then we have a product development team, which is responsible for working with the business lines to commercialize and scale those things that are successful coming out of the pilot life cycle. So if you think about that, it's a little bit different because it's not just R&D, but it's R&D with the lens towards commercialization and being able to partner with the businesses and stand them up. We have a dedicated project management team, and the reason we've done that is because one of the big resources that is often lacking in being able to commercialize things are really skilled project management functions and being able to get things to market when existing businesses are focused and have a lot of sort of already on the plate things to do and worry about. And then we have a group called Innovation Design, and this is an interesting one because they're both the folks that help us learn new things and manage our processes, but also help do the education and the cultural transformation for the company more broadly. And that allows us to both share knowledge as well as tools within the company. So I give you all that background about the organization because as a partner and as a party at the table here at Plug and Play, one of the things that we want to bring to the table is an organization that looks like this, that then has the ability to open the door to a very large bank with a multinational footprint in a number of relevant businesses where we think there are opportunities to mutually work together. So this is a little bit of, I love the fact that the pitches have, here's a little bit of, what our idea is, and then they have, here are some results, here's why it matters, or here's how we've sort of proved out our proof points. So these are a couple of ours. 15 firsts in the industry. So in the 8 years that we've been around, we have identified 15 times where we have either been first or one of an initial group of entities that have launched something that was new to the market in the space. Now that's a nice achievement. It may be a low number given the size of the organization, but if you think about something that didn't exist 8 years ago and is then able to be part of some industry-leading firsts in the payments and banking spaces, we're pretty proud of the accomplishment. The awards are less important. They're nice to have. The one thing I will mention about the awards that we've received is not one of those did we apply for ourselves. So you know how in awards you can apply for an award or you can nominate yourself. None of those we nominated ourselves for. And then the other thing I want to mention is we're averaging about 2 pilots per quarter, 2 to 3 pilots per quarter. Actually, the fourth quarter of this year will be quite a bit more active than that just because of the way some of the project plans have aligned. But the team that I have is able to run in the order of 2 to 4 projects in market or in various markets simultaneously. And right now, our success rate is running about 50% to commercialization. So you could say, wow, that's a pretty good success rate, especially if you look at it from like venture capital standards. You would say that's an amazing success rate. Or the way we look at it is maybe we're not taking enough risk and we're playing it a little bit safe and we're doing more incremental innovation and less really groundbreaking work. And that's probably closer to the truth. And part of that is just the culture and the nature of the banks, which is why we look for new ways to partner and do things differently. And for us, from a bank perspective and our payments perspective, one of the things to know about us is that we are a large partnership financial institution. So within our payments business, we have very large co-brand business. We have very large alternative distribution businesses through either merchant partners or through banking alliances. So, we have a little over 70 very large brands that do co-brand business with us, so we run their credit card programs, for example. And then we have literally thousands of other financial institutions around the country that we either do their ATM or debit processing for, we run their prepaid program, we might be the agent bank for their credit card program, or we may run their merchant processing or do correspondent banking. So the financial institutions are a large target audience for us, and sometimes that becomes relevant if we find a partner or an opportunity that is not the right fit for us, but might be the right fit for one of the other financial institutions that we work with as we understand them. This is a little bit about our progress over the years, and I won't go into this in great detail. What I would like you to get out of this chart, though, is the pace of change is picking up as it relates to our business. A decent percentage of the work that we have done here, and I didn't do the actual math, but a decent percentage of the work that we've done here has been in partnership with other technology companies or providers. So whether it's scanning a driver's license to complete a credit application, or whether it's voice biometrics or other kinds of technologies, we're not necessarily inventing those technologies on our own. What we're doing is taking somebody else's product and merging it up with our business opportunity and finding a way to bring that to market, hopefully in a compelling way. So the industry, this group needs this slide less than most groups I have the opportunity to chat with. But if you look at the pace of change, especially in the payments business, it's been accelerating pretty dramatically. And again, I know you know this, but one of the things that I think has been unnoticed by a lot of folks in the banking and payment space is what's pushing the actual change to pick up, right? So of course we had the internet, and of course we have mobile, and we have these devices that are capable of doing many more things. But the fact that the financial institutions are beginning to find ways to open up their platforms to enable these new products to be developed on top of them is allowing the change to accelerate. And you're seeing new partnerships evolve as part of that. Now, you know all about the adoption of consumer technology and how that's been speeding up. And PCs, no big surprise, have the predominant share. But mobile is rapidly closing in, and they're doing it in a much shorter time frame. And we believe that when we extend that trend out to other technologies and you start looking at smart devices and internet-connected devices in the Internet of Things space, which is yet another vertical, right, to pay attention to, that how we manage customer data, customer privacy, payments credentials, and access to all of that is going to become critically important to the way that we do business, the way that we do business with our customers and the way that our customers do business with us. And we have to be structured in such a way and partnered in such a way that we have the opportunity to do that at a rapid pace. This is a projection on the Internet of Things, and really why I said we think it's going to get a little bit crazier and the pace is going to pick up, because as enabled devices need to be able to conduct transactions on their owner's behalf, all kinds of interesting possibilities and problems get created. One set of projections, and this is coming out of an IBM white paper, and these projections are always, I shouldn't say always wrong publicly, but they're always wrong. You just never know if they're directionally correct. We think it makes sense. But 10 things, 10 connected devices for every human on the planet Earth, right? That's interesting, but then when you think about those devices being able to do things to make your life simpler and to make them easier and to solve real problems, it starts to become even more interesting. So our role in that space, as we think about it, is enabling secure commerce, enabling our customers, whether they're consumers or businesses, to interact seamlessly throughout these new product evolutions and to be able to conduct those transactions and interact with their banking products or other financial services in a secure way. We're actually thinking much more broadly than just payments. So it used to be you swipe the card and a payment gets authorized, it gets settled, everybody's happy, you're done with the transaction, the bank's role is over, other than maybe managing the credit risk or managing the other pieces. We're actually thinking about this very broadly, all the way from awareness. What is our role in the advertising life cycle? What is our role in helping a brand get partnered up with a buyer based on the data that we have that will help them know that that buyer is more likely to buy that product than something else? How can we make that matchmaking occur? How can we make that matchmaking occur as part of a new business model or as part of a new structure? That would fall into the awareness, search, and evaluation. Decision and purchase we've been very active in for decades. Context and location is coming into the mix. And I'll show you an example of what that looks like. And loyalty and experiencing the ability to trigger offers, which historically have been the bank's offers to customers, not so much delivering offers on behalf of others as part of a new business opportunity or business model. Again, the reason that I mentioned the close parallel to the retail discussions that we saw this morning. There are some other things that are happening in the space that are related. The advance of digital payment credentials and the ability to manage those more seamlessly. Frankly, that's getting better. It's sort of early days and it was a little bit rough for the customer, but I think that those processes are getting better. the advancement of tokenization and EMV in the payment space to improve data security. Tokenization being the underlying technology that's being used in Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and Android Pay, where the actual card plastic that you're carrying around is different than what's in the mobile device, which helps from a lifecycle management and security perspective. And then some of the contactless technologies of which I just mentioned too, host card emulation and near-field communication. We're also looking at other kinds of ways of securing the way the customer gets access to us. And this is interesting because, of course, you have fingerprint, and everybody sort of thinks about that now as a, well, of course you have that, right? I can use my fingerprint to open my device. I can use my fingerprint to get into my email. I can use my fingerprint to do that. If you dial back the calendar not very long, that was something you wished you could do, but you couldn't do, and instead you had sort of a long, complex password depending on how you're doing things. We experimented a couple of years ago with voice biometrics and using voice as a password with a company called Nuance, which at the time was sort of early stage in the space when we started working with them. And that's technology that we've said we're rolling out commercially for various use cases in terms of like step-up authentication. But the ability to use a phrase instead of having to type in a password solves a number of problems. One of the big problems with passwords on glass is those keyboards are really difficult to do a complex password with. Uppercase, lowercase, special characters, 3 different shifts, what have you. And so that's actually the sort of opposing force to security, because what happens? Consumers will use simple passwords, or worse, they'll reuse passwords because it's simpler. And so that if that password ever gets compromised, you actually have a whole bunch of other downstream effects that are bad things, right, to use a technical term. So in any case, we're active in that space through some partnerships, and we're looking at other things like the ability to sort of just know that you have your device, you're at work, and you're behaving like you normally behave, therefore just log you in, right, would be an example sort of use case. Like, why do I have to have a password at all? If you know I'm sitting in my office and you know I'm working and I look like I'm behaving normally, just sort of let me in. So how to simplify the customer experience and at the same time increase security is a really interesting set of problems to solve, especially for a bank. This is a little example of something that we started doing down in San Jose that's about context, uses context and location. And for some of you, this will look familiar from a non-bank perspective, because what the app does, it's called Your Community, and customers and non-customers alike can download the app. And we built this in partnership with a company called Blue Soho, who has a digital marketing platform with some of these capabilities. But what happens is when you open the app senses your location once you give it permission, right, and go through that. But it senses your location, and then it brings up a contextually different visual experience. In this case, you're seeing where we have our Santana Row, which is one of our test branches in a retail market in San Jose. And so the actual imagery is different, and it's custom to the location. It looks like the environment that you're in. If you opened it in a different location, it would look like whatever location you're in. But we created a platform within this app that allows the small business customers in the market to create offers or to also provide information about things that are happening in the marketplace that would be relevant to the consumer or small business audience. So a big bank creates an app, puts it in the market, and lets the small business community create offers that then are available to customers when they want to choose offers that are nearby them or relevant, offers for lunch, et cetera. The other thing we've done in there is we have sort of local news. So if the bank is sponsored, for instance, a discount at the art museum for either customers or non-customers, then we have the ability to promote that as well. So it's sort of like a platform as a service for our business partners to get to our customers. And what's interesting and different about that, I think, from a financial institution perspective is, we always have this challenge, which is we have something like little over 18 million customers. Being able to allow a small or medium-sized business access to that customer base in a targeted way is almost impossible without this kind of technology. And so, thinking differently about how to enable that to happen and at the same time meet the needs of the consumer who says, look, when I'm in my local community and I want to just go have lunch and I want to see offers, I would like to see things that are also locally relevant. And I would like to see things other than the everybody gets the same offer that I could just go search on the internet and find, because those are not differentiated and or necessarily valuable. So that's an example of something that we've been working on and is currently live. And then this last one, and if you have interest later, you could also go look on our YouTube channel. US Bank has a YouTube channel, and you could search the word Peri, P-E-R-I. The last one that I wanted to show you, it's a little bit of an overlap between the retail and the FinTech, because this is an app that can see and hear. And in this case, we built a reference app, but we're currently piloting with a customer where they have a branded version of the app that was built. And what the app can do is it can scan a catalog page, and based on scanning the catalog page, can pull up all the items that are on that page for sale, sort of in a product card sort of format. Within the product card format, then the user can click on the thing that they want, choose how many they want, where they want it shipped, pay securely with the payment credentials that are already stored, and have the item to be able to do it, or to be able to purchase it. So print media through this app becomes actionable without having to use a URL, a 2D barcode, or some other technologies. But importantly, it also becomes trackable. Which image, in which run, in which region, at what GPS location, et cetera, caused that ad to be clicked and caused that item to be purchased. And it becomes also actionable in terms of follow-up. You looked at the image, you put it in your shopping cart, or you scanned the product, but then you didn't buy it. Maybe I could step up the offer. Maybe I could make it more compelling to cause you to buy, maybe something else like it, but not that exactly. And so this is a more complete example in the commerce space than I think you would normally find a bank anyway doing. And we've been doing it, as I mentioned, in partnership with another company. But the intent is to sort of prove out that model as a value-added service within the payments practice. And so those are some of the things that we've been up to. Our group has right now about 34 active projects. Like I mentioned, we try to do two or so live pilots a quarter. We're very interested in traditional retail, FinTech, banking, and payments. We're, of course, a bank that's always interested in customers. That should be obvious. But we're really excited about the opportunity to be here, to be part of this super exciting ecosystem and the opportunities that are coming along. And we think we can add some value in terms of advice and also being able to make those kinds of connections that are so difficult to do, especially with companies our size. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for listening. I'm looking forward to the pitches this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Scott.